Hello there, and welcome to Dead Reflections Podcast, episode 44. We are your hosts.
I'm Kolby.
Caleb.
And I'm your boy, Josh.
That's it. That's all we got. You pointed like over there.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for tuning in wherever you are. Our goal here is to give someone at the table the chills, and if we're lucky, we might even send those spooks along to you.
Some familiar with failure updates. That's our metalcore band for all you new people. We're going on tour, bitches. March 13th through 17th with the Pop Punk Boys in Flip Cup. We'll be hitting the Dojo in San Angelo, Big Rob's in Dallas, The End in Houston, and Pink Zeppelin in San Antonio.
Let's go.
DM at FWFTX for tickets if you're interested. Also, Familiar with Failure has a new shirt design featuring our new band logo. It looks like this. We're still working on a website for everything, so DM us if you're interested, and we'll mail it out to you. Speaking of merch, what you boys got wearing?
I got wolfskin. The homies in wolfskin.
Let's get a close up.
This shirt, and then it's got the giant Oni on the back.
Yeah,
nice.
it's
It's
such
like
a
the
dope,
entirety of the back, isn't it?
So dope. I feel like metalcore bands now all like are following our color scheme because I think we did it first. The fucking
for sure did
black,
black,
white,
and
and red.
Yeah, no way.
I got
What?
slow
That's like one of
pulse.
the most basic.
Joshua.
Kill 'em all Metallica.
Joshua
Right.
Joshua
Raw.
Lee Arnold.
Dang, the
Dang.
government name?
Are you are you okay?
No, I'm not. But yeah, I got slow pulse.
We do all have white and red on.
Yeah.
I got a knock
See,
knock
you
loose
see what
shirt
I'm
on.
saying? Why is white, red, and no? You know what? I'm blaming the Last Jedi.
Bro.
That's what's
Bro, there's only so many color schemes.
there's only so many colors. I know.
Yep. And I got a Bucks hat on.
Yeah.
Go Bucks.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. Yeah, go Birds too.
Anyways, I know that this episode is your episode, Kolby Cheese.
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah." You seem excited about it when I talk to you
You
about
have
it.
been
earlier.
talking. You've mentioned multiple times where you're like at work. Where you're
I
like,
told
I'm
you
excited.
once.
No, there's like 3 times where you're like, I'm excited to tell y'all this story. Like I'm ready. Or it was probably on days that you're like, can we record today? I'm ready to tell this story.
Yeah.
I'm more
Not as an excitement, but like let's get it. Let's do this.
Like my schedule's all fucked up, and I'm like, he's like, when can we record? And I'm like, well, next
So-
week would be better because it'll be the weekend. And he's like, no, this week, like it's happening like right now. Like
I mean, that was just because I want to get
Done,
this
yeah.
shit recorded. But no, I'm really excited to tell this story, mainly to tell Josh, because I think this is gonna fuck him up the most.
Cool. Great.
I mean,
I have stream later. Am I gonna be afraid
This-
like while I'm like up
you'll-
all night? Like,
I think you'll like it too because it's serial killer related,
oh, nice.
and so
Like actual, like a real serial killer.
yeah. Well,
Will I cry?
not okay. Well, it's serial killer vibes.
Oh, okay.
There's no actual killing. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I was actually thinking about doing my story over randonauting, and I think we could save that for maybe a
a special
bonus.
episode?
I don't know if I could flesh that out enough to make a good episode.
Unless we made a video of ourselves.
That would be, I've been wanting us
Yes,
to talk about maybe
but
doing Patreon.
It's
stuff.
also one of those things that me as a skeptic, I'm still on the fence about, and just like there's a lot of just me like, oh, this is a load of bullshit.
Yeah. If we
And so-
if we decide to do like a Patreon or anything like that, that could be like a bonus thing, like
Yeah,
us just
that'd be cool.
videoing us going and doing that, bonus content for being a part of a Patreon, being a part of the cult of DRP.
Yeah, and
I just stole that copyright. I love you, Dan.
so instead of that, I am doing a story on the Russian Doll Man. Have y'all ever heard of the Russian Doll Man?
Swear to God, if there's another fucking doll in the vicinity of me, besides, I'm gonna be pissed. Don't you fucking.
Shout out to Nexpo on YouTube for that's where I got this. The Russian Doll Man. Throughout time, fascination with death has been an ongoing and shared subject for many. The grim, oddly fascinating part about the afterlife involves the possibility of forming some sort of connection with a lingering entity or loved one that might have passed. Oftentimes, either to satisfy the curiosity or to cope with loss, people will attempt to contact the dead by either visiting their grave sites or, in more extreme cases, by using certain communication devices such as a Ouija board or some sort of radio. Something we've done. By this point in time, as we all know, these definitely provide heavily mixed results depending on who you are. But what about those that take this fascination a bit too far? Historically, we've had a few very infamous names pop up about certain people keeping dead bodies for themselves. Such was the case with Carl Tanzler, the necrophile that kept a deceased and mummified 22-year-old in his home to live with him for over 7 years. This case is crazy in and of itself, but it's been covered time and time again. Because of this, I wanted to focus on a similar, if not slightly more extreme situation that came to light a few years ago surrounding the bizarre happenings of a Russian man by the name of Anatoly Moskvin. Moskvin, a 52-year-old that back in the mid to late 2000s was regarded a genius by many. He was a historian who authored various scientific papers and acquired the knowledge of upwards of 13 different languages. Many of his peers and family saw him as a quiet, ordinary person with no real cause for concern regarding his behavior. The thing is, though, he had this unforgiving obsession with the afterlife, and the scientific papers and magazine publications that he would provide over the years would actually come to assist in explaining the secret and deeply outlandish behavior that he was committing right under everyone's nose. You see, Moskvin was a very disturbing character. In late 2011, he had single-handedly thrown Russian police and media into a whirlwind down one of the darkest and most bizarre criminal cases in the country's history. Backing up to 1966, Anatoly was born in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia, to his parents by the names of Yuri Fedorovich and Elvira Alexandrovna. According to his parents, he was very socially awkward and had pretty intense difficulty making friends. On the flip side of this, he was extremely smart, and his parents simply chalked it up to his awkwardness to his intelligence, not thinking much of it. Young Anatoly had a childhood that was far from conventional, though. According to an account by him, for example, one day in the 3rd grade, he had returned home from school completely covered in bruises. As it turns out, and warning here, these were caused by a man that raped him sometime that day. To date, it's unclear whether he ever relayed that information to his parents or not. This was far from the first odd instance that played out in his youth. In fact, one could argue that what we're about to discuss was the true beginning of his obsession with the very unconventional topic, the dead. This fascination stems way back to when he was only 13. In a local weekly publication that focused on cemeteries and obituaries, Moskvin outlines a very strange ritual that he found himself tangled up in. In the publication dated October 26, 2011, he explains that a group of men in black suits stopped him on his way home from school. They were en route to the funeral of an 11-year-old Natasha Petrova and ended up dragging young Anatoly along to her coffin, where they forced him to kiss the young girl's corpse. Further on in his writing, he explains that, quote, "I kissed her once, then again, then again." Afterwards, the girl's mother then allegedly placed a wedding ring on the 13-year-old's finger and one on the hand of her dead daughter. "My strange marriage with Natasha Petrova was useful," Moskvin claimed. Useful it was, as Moskvin's unapologetic obsession with the undead was just beginning to take root. After this, Moskvin began to have very ominous dreams about the dead girl. According to him, she would visit him nightly and would try to profess her knowledge of black magic upon him, whilst pleading for him to return to the village where the ritual had taken place. Apparently, after heading back there, the visitation stopped. But this would be short-lived, as once he ceased to visit it regularly, she would once again appear in his dreams. Reporting this to his parents was ineffective at best, as they simply took him to a doctor that chalked it up to Moskvin and during puberty. With this diagnosis, he also went forth to prescribe him valerian, an herbal,
Just prescribed a valerium.
valerian, an herbal sedative that aids in relaxation.
I thought it was the fucking other drug.
I immediately thought Game of
I
Thrones.
saw Game of Thrones as well. I was like, they spoke to him
Right? They spoke to him.
in high Valyrian. They cured him. It was crazy.
After an entire year of visits by Natasha, she would eventually grow tired of Moskvin's refusals to do what she wanted. Since this was the case, she tasked him with performing a black magic ritual using a classmate's tooth in exchange for her leaving him alone forever. Somehow, according to Moskvin, the ritual was carried out successfully, and as a result, she never came back again. The so-called task would have other implications on his life, however, and it successfully kicked off Anatoly's interest in black magic and the occult. I'm just wondering, like, what happened to the dude he got the tooth from?
Right? Like, where do you get that tooth from?
Later on in life, Moskvin studied at the University of Moscow and earned a degree in Celtic studies, a culture that bears a very close blend in beliefs between life and death.
Yeah.
Also, he would go on to join the Society of the Luciferians and would embrace the left-hand path, which bears a focus on sexual magic and personal anarchy.
So he became a Satanist.
Can we get a quick Hail Lucifina?
Yeah, Hail Lucifina. Yeah.
Get that.
Good boy, Bojangles.
This, coupled with his interest in black magic, would result in Moskvin performing various rituals on dead animals and eventually vowing celibacy.
Well, wait, hold on.
Wait a minute.
Pause.
How'd you make that connection?
So it focuses on sex, but then he
Vows to be celibate.
became celibate.
Yeah, so it's sexual magic.
Yeah, but you
which-
gotta have sex to. You gotta.
I don't know, man.
Maybe not for the magic, like for the.
Yeah,
that purpose.
maybe they just use magic to have sex.
Yeah.
Just use the magic to
Yeah.
have sex. Spider-Man. Shit.
After graduation, it became known that he had grown to acquire extensive knowledge of the intricacies of all the surrounding cemeteries in his area.
Oh, I bet.
When sharing his knowledge throughout his various writings, he claims that he went to upwards of over 752 of them from 2005 to 2007.
God damn.
Yeah.
That's 2 years. It's like every night he was going and having a party with the dead.
And all of this was for his so-called research trip, because apparently in Russian colleges you get a research trip.
That's cool.
Kind of like, I guess, just going on a holiday for
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And it's like a paid holiday kind of thing. Yeah.
assisted by a well-known historian named Oleg Ryabov. The two began their trek. The two began their trek across the region to document cemeteries and to unearth local history along the way. The end goal was to publish a book by the name of Nizhny Novgorod Necropolis that contained all of his findings, but as you might have guessed, Moskvin had ulterior motives in mind. In 2009, local residents began to notice that the grave sites of their loved ones were either desecrated or dug up entirely. This eventually led to a 2-year-long investigation into these occurrences that seemed to lead nowhere at all. In 2011, an anti-Muslim terror attack would unfold at the airport in Moscow, and very shortly afterwards, authorities caught wind of some Muslim grave sites that were allegedly being dug up and vandalized. After going to investigate that for a potential terror suspect, Moskvin would quickly jump to act like he was simply painting over some gravestones. But he was in turn promptly arrested, caught red-handed in the act of vandalism. Shortly afterwards, the police would then launch an investigation into these bizarre acts by Moskvin, and the first place of interest to search was his living quarters. Fully expecting Moskvin to be an extremist, they were anticipating the discovery of various anti-Muslim propaganda to litter his living quarters. What they would find in reality, however, would leave police completely baffled. The raid, which took place in an apartment that he actually shared with his parents, ended up leading to the discovery of 29 life-size dolls.
Это что, здесь я делал, да? Да, из трупов кукол.
То есть глина там, да?
Да.
Там все девочки, да?
Ну, как правило.
Одежда, квартира.
Вечерние съемки.
Oh, what the fuck?
The figures, heavily representing antique dolls, wore various types of clothing. Apparently, Moskvin dressed all these up in makeup, even going as far to place buttons or various circular objects in their eye sockets to give them a more lifelike appearance. The thing is, though, these aren't simply dolls. Rather,
Он сам.
these were created with the dead corpses of girls ranging in the age from 3 to just 12 years old. Every single doll that you see in this video is an actual, like, human remain, like, solid body.
My God.
Oh, yeah, and he also collected the toys that were left on the tombstones. Matt, you go ahead and end it.
We're not done.
Well, it just shows what he looks like.
Look at that fucking smug. Like, he's like, yeah, you saw my collection. It's really good, right? His fucking receding hairline. Dude.
Even more disturbing, when police began to move the bodies in this investigation, most of them would emit some sort of jingle. God, this part fucked me up. It was later revealed that Moskvin stuffed each of the rib cages with music boxes so that they would emit some sort of audible feedback when he interacted with them.
What the fuck?
Like the little, like, Amazon, like,
Yeah.
music boxes that you wind up. He put those inside the rib cages.
You know, it's like you just fucking create a new nightmare for me. That's
Moskvin also allegedly kept track of their birthdays in his room and celebrated them when the time came. According to the police, there were photographs and plaques taken off the gravestones, doll making manuals, and maps of local cemeteries littering the apartment. Furthermore, the clothes that most of these dolls were wearing were the actual clothes in which they were buried.
That is fucking crazy.
Moskvin later admitted that he achieved structural integrity of the corpses by wrapping their legs and arms with rags before stuffing those into nylon tights. He performed this for each of their limbs and their faces before inserting buttons into their eye sockets as to, quote, allow them to watch cartoons with me.
Crazy, dude. That's so what? Like, it's so uncomfortable that I laugh at it.
Yeah.
So that's how like weird it is. It's just bizarre.
And I've already, like, I obviously have read this story, so it's funny to see y'all's reaction to it. In police interrogations that followed, he claimed that he loved most of them. However, there were a few that he simply wasn't content with. The ones that he had grown to dislike were promptly stuffed into a small garage and left to be forgotten. Apparently, he did all of this out of loneliness. His parents claimed that he'd grown this massive obsession with creating life-size dolls and bizarrely didn't think much of it, regardless of the smell that it would emit.
I've been thinking this whole time, like, how did it not reek?
Oh, just wait, yeah. His mother goes on to say, we saw these dolls, but we didn't expect there were to be dead bodies inside. We thought it was his hobby to make such big dolls, and we didn't see anything wrong. According to a neighbor, there would be a constantly putrid smell that would emit from their apartment every time he passed by. However, he chalked it up to being a sewage problem below the building, not thinking much of it.
I had a freezer full of meat, and the freezer broke. Telling you, dude, this is giving me Dahmer vibes, like hardcore.
All of the corpses that he kept locked up in his apartment. I don't want to read this. This one creeped me out. Out of all the corpses that he kept locked up in his apartment, there is one of them that was with him for upwards of 9 years. With all these findings by police, Moskvin was eventually charged with extremely heavy crimes.
Yeah.
In late 2011, the new nicknames given by the media, such as the Lord of Mummies and the Puppeteer. Moskvin eventually confessed to 44 counts of grave abuse and was sentenced to a psychiatric ward shortly afterwards. There, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and has been in confinement ever since. It's been reported that Moskvin was repeatedly beaten by guards at this facility, and according to his mother, was also fed up to 15 pills per day, which kept him in a catatonic state.
Jesus.
This is where it gets fucked, though, like, morally fucked. Since this was the case, a human rights lawyer by the name of Violeta Volkova was hired to represent Moskvin. Her end goal was to get him out of the facility and into an independent clinic in Moscow for re-examination, expressing a primary distrust in the ward's doctors. This grueling legal fight ended up earning him a second hearing, and as of September 2018, he was offered the opportunity to continue his psychiatric treatment at home. And alongside this, the ability to essentially walk free.
So he just out and about fucking making dolls.
As you might expect, though, this decision has been met with pretty heavy controversy. One of the victim's mothers, a woman by the name of Natalia Chartimova, didn't realize that this entire time she was visiting an empty coffin when going to her daughter's gravesite.
Damn.
The corpse of her daughter, Olga, was one of the 29 girls that he dug up and kept locked in his home. Apparently, she had been brutally murdered at the age of 10. And it's completely tragic to think about what this mother could have gone through during that. Coming to the realization that her daughter was taken from her not only once, but a second time. Infuriates her. and she is one of the very many that unapologetically oppose the potential release of him. He needs to be kept under surveillance. This creature brought fear, terror, and panic into my life. Quote from her. To wrap up this story, a quote from Anatoly Moskvin. You abandoned your girls. I brought them home and warmed them up.
Fucking awful. That is terrible.
So yeah, what'd you think?
Uh,
Discuss.
So the morality of him being free or not being free, I did like that.
Yeah.
That added to it, because if he would have killed someone, then for me, in my mind and my thought process, you don't get
you don't get
it.
special
Yeah.
treatment.
Yeah,
at
you
that
don't get
point.
any kind of.
But it's like he didn't kill them.
You can't be charged for being weird,
yeah.
you know. But he did
Yeah.
commit a crime,
Yeah.
so
Exactly. So it's like
Digging up graves.
it kind of sucks because it was a missed opportunity to make a joke, and I don't want to disrespect Olga.
Get closer to your mics.
I don't want to disrespect Olga, so I'm going to use Karen because that's the American version. But like, you know, the ones that he like kept in the separate room, like in the in the garage or whatever.
Yeah, the ones he
like-
didn't like.
Like he's like, man, fucking Karen's a bitch. Like blah blah blah. I was gonna say Olga because that's like a Russian name, and then you told the story about
Yeah.
the 10-year-old, and I was like, thank God I held off on that. Like that
It's
would've
okay.
felt
Like
so bad.
every third person is named Olga.
Yeah,
so-
but like, could you just imagine that? Like, he's like, I fucking made you into a doll, and you're gonna be a little fucking bitch. Like, you know, like just like having conversations with them.
so
like,
that's where my mind went
Yeah.
as well. It's like he had a full relationship. With
yeah,
these
yeah,
things,
yeah. Like they're talking. To
like he
him.
treated them as his I want to say like he had like a fatherly like relationship to these
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they were all young
Well, and he built
Yeah.
them.
young
And
girls.
he
Yeah.
made them. It's
Yeah.
like he breathed new life into a dead body.
Yeah.
Like that's insane. It did give me Dahmer vibes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like I
Yeah,
don't.
he just
I'm
didn't
trying to think of
consume
like what
them.
made me. Yeah, he didn't consume them, but it was still a kind of like in his apartment, like it's there,
Yeah.
like the smell, like all that stuff. Like the story was very similar.
I think what's terrifying to me is visualizing the setting of this, like early 2000s rural Russia.
Yeah, it didn't happen that long ago,
Yeah.
and then like
Yeah, and forget what exactly. I read some more articles on like his like status as like either in a psychiatric thing or at home. From what I know is he is completely like free now,
oh, that's so
and he's
crazy.
Do you think there's
he's like
reforming?
mid 50s, I think.
Do you think he reforms?
No,
No, I don't think so.
I would not be surprised if like one day they rate him again and he has.
I don't know if he'd ever do it
walls.
again, but I think you can't. I think there's a piece broken.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Can't be fixed.
He's sitting there thinking about it probably constantly. Don't bury your loved ones in Russia,
Yeah.
wherever that
Yeah.
is. The moral
or,
of the
or in
story.
the area, yeah.
That
Just keep it.
That
away
is so
from-
wild. Like just thinking about like long day of work. I get out of the car and I like come in here, drop my backpack off, and like my $18 are sitting there. Like,
yeah, and he was like, "Hey,
this
hey,
sucks
what's up,
today."
ladies? Like, how, man, dude, my day was terrible. Like, you know,
the weather was cold. I just
bro.
didn't, if I wasn't feeling it
my,
today.
my boss is an asshole, and you know what? But thankfully, I have y'all to come to. You know,
They're just
yeah, and they're just like, yeah, I love it when you look at me like that. You know, like, dude.
It's so
Okay, so
terrible.
I will say,
I have to make a joke out of it because it makes me so uncomfortable to think about somebody living like that.
yeah, like I will say that my uncanny valley senses, you know how like they're extremely heightened.
Hey, you
When
remember this
when we
time?
watched that video,
Silicon Valley.
when we watched, I have worked really hard to make sure that I say uncanny valley. Okay. Well, what
You
was
did
I
well.
saying before?
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley. When we watched that video and it showed that like you paused it on that doll
Yeah.
face, like my shit, like all of the alarms in my brain were like, no, I don't
Yeah.
know what's wrong with that, but that's just extra bad. And then you're like, yeah, this is actual real people's
Yeah.
bodies, and I'm like,
Yep.
that makes sense.
Yep.
You know? Oh man, dude, talk about
the dude.
you know, you think you have your fears figured out, and then you find out that they could be worse.
It can be
like
worse.
I'm
It can
looking at
always be worse.
Elvira right now, not the Elvira from the story, Elvira on the table, and
So she's just got a
how
tiny
she has
little-
that weird seepage, and I'm like, what if there's a tiny
no.
fucking
Something
like
in it.
kid brain in there or some shit? Like,
Don't say that.
well, look at her. She's degrading in such a strange way. Like, I don't know what that could be. Don't. Yeah, like look at her
little things.
face. We didn't do that. She did not look like that. See the stain like on her face? Like, what is that?
It's
better from here.
Oh yeah, there you go.
it's
Yeah.
the spirit of her.
Oh, fucking-
Tilt her down so she gets some light on it.
Oh, you're right.
There you go.
That's so much worse.
I just hate how I'm like in frame with her. Can you? All right.
It's simply the spirit of Elvira trying to
Get out.
Um,
Yeah.
trying to
What if she was made by Homeboy
what's
and
the-
there's a
what's
like
the
a
word?
little skeleton?
What's
in
the
there?
word when they like when you like try to
Manifest.
or no, not manifest, but like you try to go from like spiritual to physical.
The ectoplasm? Maybe it's ectoplasm.
Possibly. No, I don't know what the term is for
Yeah.
that.
Or I guess physically manifest. I
Yeah,
don't know.
manifesting. Manifesting is the word I think I'm thinking of. Well, that was a fantastic fucking story. Thanks a lot. Now,
Yeah,
I'm gonna have
go
nightmares.
check out Nexpo on YouTube. He's got
Yes.
some sick videos.
I'm definitely gonna check him out. That's awesome.
I
Yeah.
believe I can't remember if it's Time Suck or Scared to Death, but they did do a story either similar or on this guy.
Yeah,
Well,
if
there
it
was
was
also,
Scared to Death, then it was a adjacent story that had this theme, or if it was Time Suck, it was over this guy. And
yeah.
full
I
depth.
can see Dan doing
and there
the
was
story.
also the.
Real-
It also kind of gives me reminds me of the story of the guy who he owned the dress shop, and there was the mannequin that looked lifelike.
Oh,
And they
in
thought
Mexico?
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
thought it was like his daughter or whatever, and he like preserved her in a mannequin.
Was that in Mexico?
I think it was Mexico.
There's another one where there's a shop that has a doll and it's still there. I don't think it is, because if it was a body, then they would have gotten rid of it.
Yeah.
But it like is known for singing to you and stuff like that.
Oh
Yeah.
no! This one was like the skin looked like it was actual skin and stuff. Yeah,
That's gross.
yeah. You're like, "Ew." But like preserved perfectly. Like it wasn't like it was decaying. At
Oh,
all.
really?
Yeah.
Heavy
All right,
on the
so-
do
formaldehyde.
y'all have any scary things that happened to y'all
Oh,
to talk about?
I don't think so.
I don't.
So I have one. It's not terribly scary. It's just a little weird.
You've been getting up in the wee hours more recently.
Yeah, this happened this morning actually.
Oh,
Yep,
Kidding.
fitting. But yeah, no, I was actually on Franklin Street. We used to live on this street, and
Why? Why?
Hmm?
Why were you on Franklin Street?
was it a jog?
I mean, it's only 2 blocks over
Oh,
from
that's true.
the street I live on. And I was jogging on the road that I used to jog on, so it had like a kind of a nostalgic like
Yeah.
vibe going on with the early morning mist and shit. And there is playing into what I talked about last episode with my randonauting
Yeah.
adventures. There was something dead in the middle of the road, and one singular vulture was feasting upon it, and the vulture was chill as hell.
Yeah. Like we homies.
Yeah. Like I honestly I want a pet vulture. I think they're cool animals. But anyway, as I was passing, like literally like I slowed down because I didn't want to like speed walk up to this vulture, and he just went off the road into the yard next to it and just waited for me to pass. And as I was passing, the song "Dead and Gone" off of Ozzy Osbourne's new album
Oh shit.
was playing because I've been jamming a lot of black metal on my workouts. And
What does that say about his character?
well, see, okay, so the lyrics to it's in the second verse of "Dead and Gone" by Ozzy. He says, "Hungry as vultures, craving the throne."
Ooh.
And I thought, like, literally the only time that someone like could talk about vultures is as I'm passing one.
Yeah, that's a little
Yeah.
that's weird. Oh, yeah, I can see how like you're like,
Yeah, no, like I'm like because like like when you're working out or you're doing something with music playing in the background or in your headphones, you're not paying attention to the lyrics
yeah.
or anything.
Did it like
You're
stand
just
out to you? Like,
Yeah, whole big time.
Like it was like your ears hyper focused on
Yeah.
it. Oh, no,
Yeah.
yeah, that would freak me out.
Because I'm like I'm seeing like I'm fucking 20 feet away from this
Yeah, and then it's like
wild animal.
vultures thirsting for the throne, and you're like,
Yeah.
Wait a
what are you
minute.
trying to
Yeah,
tell
I'm
me?
like,
Ozzy?
wait a minute. And so I quickly like screenshotted because I don't know the song. Like I don't,
Yeah,
I'm just now listening to the album. And so I screenshot it. I was like,
Good album.
yeah,
Good album.
it was very weird.
You got any?
I don't think I've had anything.
All right, well, I guess that's it, right? That's it for episode 44 of Dead Reflections Podcast. We'd like to shout out our friends and Dark Hour Podcast, No Man's Land, and FTS Paranormal. Really creepy stuff going on over there. We encourage y'all to go check them out. Follow us at Dead Reflections Podcast on all social medias or follow the link tree to find our socials. Spotify, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the video version of the podcast on YouTube. Email us at deadreflectionspod@gmail.com to submit your stories. Let us know how we're doing. Be sure to follow our band Familiar with Failure at FWFTX on all socials. Please leave a rating and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you for all your continued support. And remember, tell your family, tell your friends, and tell the monsters under your bed to listen to Dead Reflections Podcast.
Go play in some graves.
Yeah. No. Ah.
I don't have a thing. I don't know.
Are you still trying to think of something?
Yeah. Why is it that you were both looking at me to come up with a thing to say? Why do I have to say a thing after every episode?